Hello everyone, my name is Tian Xintong. Today I will present my research on performance anxiety in classical singing with a focus on bel canto singers. I will divide my presentation into several parts. The introduction of the research topic, literature review, research methodology, description of preliminary work, the assignment, the insight, proposed methodology for full study, implications of the research, potential impact in the wider world, conclusion and reference. First, I would like to introduce the research topic. The background is performance anxiety is very common among singers, especially in classical music. Many singers feel nervous before going on stage or while performing. This kind of anxiety can affect breathing, vocal control, and emotional expression. This topic is significant because singing is not only a technical skill, but also a psychological activity. Even if a singer has strong technique, anxiety can still affect performance. So understanding this problem can help singers improve and can also help teachers guide students better. My research focuses on the following questions. Whether their performance is affected by anxiety. Which aspects are affected? Whether they experience muscle tension, whether anxiety affects vocal technique, and whether psychological training is necessary. This study comes from three main sources. First, my own experience as a classical singer. I have personally experienced situations where I feel prepared technically, but still feel nervous on stage, and this affects my breathing and focus. Second, my observations of peers in performance settings. I noticed that many singers face similar problems, even those with good technique. Third, I noticed a gap between technical training and psychological preparation in vocal education. In many training systems, students spend a lot of time on technique, but less time on mental preparation for performance. These reasons made me interested in studying performance anxiety more deeply. Next, I will move on to the literature review. Music performance anxiety, MPA, is widely recognized among musicians as a common condition involving both cognitive and physiological responses during performance, as shown in studies by Barber et al. And Freeholm et al. To understand this better, it is important to note that MPA is not only feeling nervous, but a complex interaction between thought patterns, emotional reactions, and bodily responses. Research suggests that MPA is closely linked to general anxiety mechanism, particularly cognitive, appraisal, and fear of negative evaluation. This means that how performers interpret a situation strongly affects their anxiety level. These ideas are explained in modules by Hoffman and Kritzko et as well as in the framework proposed by Pope George and colleagues. To put it simply, if a performer thinks I might fail or be judged, anxiety increases. If we think this is an opportunity to express music, anxiety may be reduced or transformed into motivation. Research also shows that performance outcomes are influenced by cognitive framing. If a situation is interpreted as a threat, psychological stress responses are activated. If it is interpreted as a challenge, performance may experience more control and focus. This is discussed by Gaillon et al. In higher music education, especially in conservatoire and professional vocal training, anxiety is often stronger due to high expectations, uh, perfectionism, competitive environments, and self-monitoring behaviors. Students are often highly aware of small technical failures, which can amplify anxiety during performance. This is supported by Burrows et al., Osborne et al., and Span et al. Finally, research shows that cognitive behavioral approaches, CBT-based interventions, module strategies combine psychological and physical training, and standardized tools such as MPAIA are widely used for assessment and intervention. These approaches aim not only to measure anxiety, but also to help performers reframe thought and regulate physiological responses. Now I will move to the research methodology. In my pilot study, I used qualitative methods, including literature analysis, interviews, and self-reflection. I choose qualitative research for three main reasons. First, it allows deep exploration of personal experiences. Second, it is suitable for understanding emotional and psychological processes. Third, it provides detailed insight rather than simple numerical results. Then I will describe my preliminary work. First, the literature review shows that music performance anxiety can significantly affect singers' breathing control, muscle coordination, and overall vocal stability. At the same time, studies indicate that anxiety is closely related to cognitive appraisal and stress responses, which influence both the psychological and the physiological states during performance. Second, I conducted structured interviews with three bel canto singers, Wang Chenxi, Liu Yixuan, and Wang Wenjia. All of them have real stage experience, including concert, school exams, and small public performances. Before starting the interviews, I asked all participants to reflect on real performance situations instead of general opinions. This is because I wanted to understand their actual experience, not only their ideas. The interviews were based on 5 key questions: whether anxiety affects their performance, which parts are affected, whether they feel muscle tension, whether vocal technique is influenced, and whether psychological training is necessary. Their answers shows very clear and similar patterns, but each singer also described slightly different personal experience. Wang Chenxi explained that her anxiety usually starts before she goes on stage, especially during the waiting time. She said that even when she feels technically prepared, her body starts to react before she begins singing. In this situation, her breathing becomes noticeably shallow and fast. She described that during performance, she often feels that she cannot fully support long muscle phrases. In bell canto singing, long phrases requires stable airflow, and under anxiety, she feels the breath becomes shorter and less controlled. She also mentioned that her attention becomes divided. Instead of focusing on musical expression, she starts thinking about what if I make a mistake, which makes her even more nervous. Because of this, she feels her sound becomes less smooth, especially in slow areas that requires long breathing line and emotional control. Liu Yixuan focused more on physical reaction and muscle tension. She said that her anxiety is mainly felt in the body, especially in the shoulders, neck, and the throat area. Before singing, she often does warm-up exercises. But when she is nervous, her muscles still feel tight, even after warming up. She clearly explained that this tension directly affects her vocal production. For example, she said her throat feels not free, which makes it harder to produce stable and open sound. She also noticed that her pitch stability becomes weaker under pressure. In higher notes, she sometimes feels the sound is not fully supported, and this makes her even more anxious during performance. She also mentioned that after performance, she can clearly hear that difference between her normal practice voice and her performance voice, which makes her more aware of the impact of anxiety. Wang Wenjia described her experience from a more technical perspective. She said that when she feels nervous, her main problem is not only breathing or tension, but loss of technical control. She explained that during performance, she sometimes forgets to maintain proper resonance placement instead of focusing on vocal technique. Her attention shifts to controlling mistakes. This creates a circle. The more she tries to control everything, the more unstable her singing becomes. She also mentioned that her sense of muscle freezing becomes weaker under pressure. She may shorten phrases or rush muscle lines without noticing it. However, she also gave an important point. She believes that experience can help reduce anxiety. She said that after performing more times on stage, she slowly becomes more familiar with the feeling of pressure, although it never fully disappears. Although each singer described their experience in a slightly different way, their responses showed very consistent patterns. First, all of them confirmed that anxiety affects their breathing control. Second, all of them reported either muscle tension or loss of physical freedom. Third, all of them said that vocal technique becomes less stable under pressure. Finally, all participants agreed that psychological training is necessary in vocal education. This consistency is very important because it shows that performance anxiety is not an individual problem, but a common issue among Vilcando singers. Finally, in the self-reflection part, I recorded both my daily practice and stage performance and conducted comparative analysis. I also took notes after each season for reflection. The results similarly shows that under performance anxiety, my breathing becomes less stable, my body more tense, and my vocal technique less controlled, which further supports the finding from the literature and interviews. For the assignment, there are three key findings. Anxiety leads to irregular breathing. Muscle tension affects vocal stability, and the psychological state interferes with vocal technique. Three findings are supported by literature review and self reflection. Next are the insights. Emotional state is closely related to vocal performance. Technical skill alone is not enough. Psychological training should be included in vocal education. Now I will introduce the full study plan. In the next stage, I will continue using qualitative methods and expand the sample size to include singers with different training backgrounds and performance levels. I will also include interviews with vocal teachers and students to explore how anxiety is perceived and managed from both teaching and learning perspectives. In addition, I will design practical interventions based on the identified anxiety factors. These include breathing regulation exercise, mental skills training, and performance simulation practice. The goal of these interventions is not only to reduce anxiety symptoms, but also to improve the coordination between psychological state and vocal technique under real performance conditions. This research has several implications. For singers, it provides a deeper understanding of how anxiety affects performance and how it can be managed. For teachers, it highlights the importance of integrating psychological awareness into vocal training. For researchers, it demonstrates the value of qualitative approaches in studying performance-related psychological phenomena. Now, I will talk about the wider impact of this research. First, this study can help explore the specific trigger in performance anxiety in more detail. In future research, different situations can be examined, such as stage size, audience number, exam pressure, or personal expectations. By identifying this specific trigger. It will possible to provide more targeted strategies for singers rather than only general advice. Second, this study can support long-term research on anxiety management. Future studies can use a longitudinal approach to follow singers over a period of time and observe how they deal with performance anxiety. This can help us with performance anxiety. This can help us understand which strategies remain effective in the long term and which are only useful in the short term. Third, this study may lead to collaboration with music institutions and training programs. The strategies developed in this research, such as breathing exercises, mental training, and performance simulation, can be applied in real teaching settings. Their effectiveness can then be tested in practice, which may help improve both teaching quality and student support. Finally, the findings of this study can be shared with a wider audience. For example, the result can be presented through academic papers, conferences, or teaching workshops. This can help raise awareness of performance anxiety among singers, teachers, and music professionals, and may also improve both teaching and performance environment. Finally, I will conclude this presentation. This study shows that performance anxiety significantly affects vocal performance. Amongst all aspects, breathing control and tone quality are the most affected, and they are closely related to overall vocal stability and performance quality. The qualitative findings of this study provide valuable insight into singers' real experiences, showing that anxiety is not only a psychological issue, but also directly influenced vocal technique. In addition, this study suggests that practical intervention strategies such as breathing training, mental skills training, and performance simulation and helps reduce performance anxiety and improve vocal performance. And these are my references. Thank you.